The best way to understand Dynamic SQL is to see some code examples in this video. So what I'm going to do here is let's start off with the table that we want to look at. And we just want to do the count function. And we're going to do just a simple little cheat kind of a query here. We're going to count the number of rows in our tables. So we'll start off with our person.person table. Now, anytime we execute this, it is just going to go through, count all the rows for us, and give us a result. And notice there's 19,972 rows. Control R to make that go away. And let's look at how we might variabilize this. Now, let's say that we create a variable. Notice how we create one, the declare statement. We want to variabilize that table name. So we're going to go about it this way. And then we will set that variable equal to a literal. Then we will type our query. Looks good, does it not? Now notice we're already getting squigglies here, and if I try to run that, I'm going to get an error message that says, hey, wait a minute, you got to declare the variable at TBL. And I can scream at my computer, I declared it right there, and I set it to a value right there, and you're not using it until down here. But you got to remember, that's not the order in which SQL looks at it, and so we're going to have to help it out a little bit. And here is the way we do that. We're going to have to make this part of the query a literal. Put a space in there, and we're going to concatenate it to table, just like that. Now that still won't execute. So what we're going to use is the execute command, the same one we used with our stored procedures, and we're going to put the entire query in a parentheses. Now notice, let me make the results go away down there. All of our squigglies went away. So we've set it to person.person, so let's execute that. And notice there's our 19,972. Let's go over here and just for fun, let's find a totally different table. Let's do person.address, okay? So I'm just going to change this, and we will highlight that, and we'll execute it, and notice there's 19,614 there. Let's do human resources shift. So we'll grab all that. And we'll execute this one more time. And notice there's 3. So this is working now. But this right here is Dynamic SQL. We simply turn the entire query into a literal. We concatenate the variables into that. Now this is a very simple example that can get a lot more involved than this, obviously. But now let's do something a little different. Let's turn this into a stored procedure where we can play with it. So let's create proc count rows, and let's use our table variable. We'll make it 50 as, and now we'll just put our execute, and I am just going to copy this so you don't have to watch me muddle through that. And just like that, we're going to create our stored procedure, highlight it, execute it, command completed successfully. Let's make it go away. Now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to execute count rows. And to be consistent, I could make that all cap. Doesn't really matter, but that's really the correct way to do it. The formal way to do it, I should say. And notice we execute that and it says it expects a table which wasn't supplied, and I didn't. So let's add it. So now we're passing in the variable, right? The variable's going into TBL. TBL is being used here, and we're going to select from whatever value we put into our variable right here, into our parameter. Pass it in, 19,972. Control R to make that go away. Let's go get somebody else. Let's come down here. Let's go to production scrap reason. Table production scrap reason. How many rows are in there? We don't know. Don't even know what's in that table, actually. There are 16 rows there. Notice how easy this is. We simply variabilized or added an input parameter, if you want to say it that way, to a stored procedure, used Dynamic SQL in the stored procedure to be able to variabilize the table, and we pass the table name in as a parameter. Really, really cool stuff. That's a very quick, simple look at using Dynamic SQL. Now go out there, look in books online for Dynamic SQL, read up. There's a few more little ins and outs here. Also, look at some more complex examples, but this should help you get your head wrapped around it, and this should turn you loose on variabilizing almost any aspect of your T-SQL code.